This is the best of the week on Relevant Radio.
Number one, a popular one is the robocalls. This is where someone appears to be from the Internal Revenue Service and they call you on the phone and asking for some of your personal information. You want to be really careful with that and make certain that the person you're talking to is actually the IRS, and in most cases, of course, it's not. Another one are phishing emails and also text messages too as well. You may receive a text message from someone appearing to be from the IRS and saying, hey, I need your information to process your tax refund. And again, it's not from the IRS. And last but certainly not least, when it comes to charity, there have been a rise of different scams when it comes to asking for money for certain charities and appearing, of course, to be legitimate. But again, they're not. So you really want to be careful, especially during this time.
It's the Drew Mariani Show on Relevant Radio.
We're 3 weeks away from April 15th, and it's a deadline that you have to get your taxes done. You know, you have to have your federal and your state income taxes completed. Here's something you've got to look out for. With most of our tax filings going online, there are a lot of scammers out there trying to get your personal information so they can defraud you. There's always been scammers trying to get you to do something, but it's prolific right now. And right now, this very moment, there are some scammers that could be out there filing a fake return in your name using your Social Security number. They pocket your refund, they wreck your credit, and then all of a sudden you're left holding the bag trying to unravel that knot, right? It's not rare. You think, well, that doesn't really happen to many people, does it? There was a survey that was just done by Allstate Insurance. 2 out of every 3 Americans worry, they say, about their personal information being compromised during tax season. And Allstate said they've got a reason because this is on the rise. A lot of people are now having their credit and their identity stolen. Paul Oster, he's the president of Better Qualified. It's a management firm in Eaton, New Jersey. What he's told me is pretty chilling. He says, I tell my clients, be extra vigilant this time of year. He says, because he sees patterns. He sees cases of ID theft skyrocketing during the tax season, and people, of course, are rushing to file. You're not paying close attention. You're exchanging sensitive information online, and that's how you become a victim. He's here right now to take us through this. Just give you some 101 if you have not filed your taxes or if you're going to be doing stuff online, how to make sure that you don't get caught in a phishing or smishing scheme or some other strategy that those scammers are at now using. Good to have you back, Paul. Good afternoon.
Hey, always great to be on, Drew. Thanks for having me back.
So, how prolific is this problem? I know people are trying to sell you stuff that keeps you safe, but how real is the problem? I mean, what are the most common scams that we're seeing, and how many people fall for these?
Yeah, so if we kind of dissect it and we talk about the fraudulent tax returns, there's a couple of things that people need to do. The first thing is you can establish a PIN with the IRS. The IRS will not file a return unless that PIN has been given to them. So that kind of eliminates a big part of the threat. The other thing people need to do is you need to open up your e-file account with the IRS because, and most people are like, what? What is that? They don't even know that all of us can open up this e-file account. And the problem is, if you have a CPA or a tax preparer file your tax returns, you say, well, I don't need to do that. The problem is if you don't do it, then the identity thieves will do it for you. And that's how it becomes pretty easy for them to file a fraudulent tax return. So go to irs.gov, create your PIN that's associated with your tax return. Obviously, you need to keep that PIN in a safe place, or if it's a known number to you that you'll remember and you won't forget it, okay. And make sure you create your online account with the IRS so that the identity thieves don't do it for you.
So how does somebody determine whether or not their credit has been taken? You just wait to see, or is there a way you can preemptively check? Said, I filed online, but I don't know whether this was a scam or not. I know somebody who, in fact, I told them I think they're scammed. I think the IRS will never call you. I think they got a call from somebody saying, we're having a problem filing your return. I don't know exactly what happened, but he ended up giving them information. And I'm like, I didn't really know what to tell him what to do. I don't know whether you need to just go to the credit bureau, make sure you're not being sold down the dark web, or your Social Security is, or what the deal is. What advice do you give to somebody to check to see whether or not they've been scammed, and how can they determine if that's the case?
Sure. So one of the good things, one of the hangovers from the pandemic was that we can now check our credit once a week, by the way.
Wow. I didn't
You used to only have access to that annual creditreport.com once every year, So now you can check your credit every week. Look at the reports. You will not get your credit scores. Don't worry about the scores. Don't pay the bureaus any extra money to look at your scores. Look at the information that's on those reports. One of the immediate red flags for identity theft would be an address that's on your credit report that you do not recognize. If that happens, you have to be very proactive and force the credit bureaus to remove that address, because that's one of the first things identity thieves do. They establish a new address associated with your Social Security number. So if and when they do open up these new accounts, all of the correspondence will go to that physical address and not yours.
A lot of scammers trying to get that personal information of yours. One of the most prolific ones right now is a text message claiming that you owed road tolls. And don't tap on the link. My wife got it the other day, Paul, and she's like, do we owe for our iPass? It seems like we have an outstanding toll. So I got online and I went to where my account is, and there were no outstanding tolls, but it looked very legit. And people might be like, I'll just go and pay that.
Yep.
That's a common scam, isn't it?
And it's becoming more and more common. The identity thieves are a smart bunch of people. These are not low-level crooks. These are high-level crime, syndicates worldwide. And they've now taken advantage of the fact that 99% of text messages are read within minutes, by the way.
Wow.
And there's always a call to action. There's always a sense of urgency. In this situation, you have to take a step back, take a deep breath, and control the situation from your side. Don't click on the link that they tell you to click on. Don't call the number that they give you to check it out to see whether or not it's valid. You have to take a step back and do it exactly what you did, Drew. Do a little homework, legwork, to find out if you do or you don't owe it. But you have to find the right resource to do that. You can't rely on what's in the text message or the email, because you're going to get a fake agent when you call.
Wow.
So certainly don't click on any of the links. Don't answer them. If you get the phone call, just simply hang up. And again, be proactive. You control the situation. Find the right number, whether it's for your bank. Very, very common to get a text message. It looks like it's coming from your bank. There's been fraud detected on your account. Did you, they'll ask you, yes or no. Did you make a purchase? It happened to me. Did you make a purchase at Best Buy in Georgia for $695? No. I pressed no, and I replied to the text. I got a phone call immediately from, quote unquote, my bank. Well, it wasn't my bank. And they were trying to get me to give them the one-time password. So they're trying to log into my account. Let me verify some information, go through all the stuff. Then they're trying to log into my bank account, but they need the one-time passcode for the two-step authentication. If you give them that, they're going to take all your money.
Dave is in St. John, Indiana. Dave, thanks for calling in. Good afternoon.
Hi. I had a problem with filing electronically. The accountant couldn't get the right PIN, so he couldn't file it electronically, so I had to do it by snail mail. So I called the IRS to send me a replacement, and they said, it takes 21 days. 21 days? What happened with first-class mail? So I gave up on electronic filing, and I snail mailed the returns.
Paul, let you respond.
Well, yeah. Listen, snail mail is probably the safest way to still do this. And even in today's environment, snail mail is not really that bad anymore. So you should have your returns processed in almost the same amount of time that if you filed electronically, and then they'll send out your refund via regular post. And I don't see that adding too much time to the process. So
what happens is, your data gets breached, Paul, right? Whether it is from some scam or a phishing scam. I even heard that the genetic company, a lot of people did 23andMe. They announced they're going to file bankruptcy, and the California AG there suggested to users, delete your data with the company, because if they go into bankruptcy, who owns the material? Who's going to, your credit card stuff could get leaked. You never know what happens. We've seen breaches in the major credit card companies, into hospitals. So what happens is that stuff gets taken. What ends up happening? Take us through. So it ends up getting put on the dark web and sold. Is that how it works?
Yeah. So the identity thieves that actually steal the data are not typically the ones that use the data. They will resell your accounts on the dark web. And depending upon how much data they have, do they have your passwords? How many different accounts do they have? That's going to determine what these people pay. But you have to remember that they're buying tens of thousands of these files at a clip. Basically, all of our information goes for about $10 on the dark web.
Yeah, and for those who don't know what the dark web is it's a hidden part of the internet. It's not indexed by, traditional search engines. So if you go to Google or Bing, you won't get it. It's accessed through special software. It kind of makes you anonymous. It makes your user identity and your location anonymous, and some nefarious stuff is done there. But you'll find if you get hacked, maybe your social security number, your passwords, your bank account, or driver's license. Some of that stuff's up there. I wish there was some sort of digital secure. I wish there was some way we could keep all this data safe. It needs to be decrypted, like on the blockchain. I don't know. Do you understand what I'm saying? Is there something coming that way?
You would hope, right, that they now start to find out a way to protect it. But so they've done some different things. Remember, the old credit card was converted into a chip card because that added more security. The problem is, again, these identity thieves are some of the very people that were involved in that process. There was a tremendous amount of layoffs out in Silicon Valley in California. And unfortunately, a lot of the top minds in the internet and IT left the legitimate world and now work in identity theft, and they get paid millions of dollars to do it. So as soon as we come up with something as a solution, the identity thieves are right behind us. That's why we have to be very proactive in doing whatever we can to protect our own data, because, there's a company out there called Firefly, and their estimate, this is scary. Any company or person who's ever done anything on the internet, 97% of those people, they have your stuff. They took it. Whether or not they're going to use it, it's only a matter of if, not when, or I should say a matter of when, not if they're going to use it. So think about that. 97%, if you've ever done banking online, if you've ever shopped online, if you've ever done anything online, your data is out there. It's available for sale. So you have to do some credit monitoring. You have to change your PINs and passwords. People think, it's no big deal. How would they know my password? If you don't change your PINs and passwords, what happens? You become the easy target.
Are you a fan of password managers? Because I think of how many different passwords I have for everything from periodicals to banking. It's like, are password managers the way to go, or can they be compromised?
I think they are, but the threat of them being compromised. So if you're going to use a password manager, you have to make sure you use one of the big names like Norton or McAfee. If you use anything less, now you're really putting yourself at risk.
Hey, this episode of the Drew Mariani Show is on the Relevant Radio app. The Relevant Radio app is completely free. It's updated daily with fresh articles, podcasts, and prayers. So don't delay. Download the app today. Thanks for listening.